Alright, I'm going to go ahead and share the stream. Phones will be open momentarily.
I got the caddy, I make the Benjis, a limousine with peaches and cream. You make that dough, the symbol show, euthanasia. Nightmare hippie girl, blue wrench, that big Ben 190, got the VIP cause I'm a 33.
Alright, so it is January the 12th, 2022. It is 10:12 p.m. Mountain Time. Let's see here. Joining the chat by Teresa, The Missing, Zareth the Alchemist, Evar, and a few others. Look, we're scattered around a little bit tonight, so if you're on YouTube or on DLive, I'm watching all of the chats. One of the strange, well, the main stories today, it's kind of strange. This one, it just surprised me. Someone posted it in Discord this morning. There's another one of the appearances at a Dallas City Council meeting by Conspiracy Castle's Alex Stein. And this time he did a rap. And I watched this performance piece. It's kind of a dancing nurse kind of, I guess it's a dancing nurse type of thing, that comes out to rap in favor of vaccines. Kind of like the vaccine dance that Stephen Colbert did. Like just uber vax cringe. And this stuff is very popular, as you all know. There's like no limit to it. Well, interestingly enough, the performance art piece, and this isn't the first time he's done this, he does this stuff all the time. But this time it was tweeted by some guy from Dallas News who mistakenly assumed it was pro-vax. Like he didn't get the sarcasm. So Everton Bailey Jr. is responsible for what happened next. So he tweets this thing in disbelief. Alex Stein spraying himself with hand sanitizer and then doing this pro-vax. I'll play a moment of it.
From Mona. Don't vaccinate. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. You gotta vaccinate in the Lone Star State. Vaccination.
So there you have it, and it goes on for a couple of minutes. He starts off about to play, I believe, some background music, and it totally fails on him, which I think made it all the better because now it's just this bizarre a cappella where he's breathlessly rapping non-stop until the very last second. I'll play a few more seconds of it, but you won't believe how viral this thing has gone because of how it's been taken. So this guy, for example, his video has 1.6 million. There are many people on the right who think that he's literally a pro-vaxxer. They think that this is one of these examples of this mass psychosis. So it's being tweeted as, look, we've bottomed out. Humanity has bottomed out. So people who don't know it's a joke are sharing it. And it's been so misconstrued by both sides that it's getting a ridiculous number of hits.
It's so great. Vaccinate me all day long. Vaccinate your daddy and mom. Vaccinate my body. Vaccinate me at the
I mean, I guess it's ambiguous. I mean, is it really it's not really anti. So that's the thing about it. Is that no, this is definitely a pro piece. It's definitely pro Pokey, pro Fauci. It fetishizes the whole process just like the MSM stuff does. So if anything, this is actually very par for the course. This is what we're used to seeing. It's just odd coming from someone from the other side, and this is what they miss. So the mass media doesn't know that they just let a flat earther get past all of their filters. So now you have Alex Stein trolls Dallas City Council, Citizen Free Press, and like I said, this is going around. I saw it in a number of big social media influencers have picked up on it. A YouTuber, Alex Stein, goes viral and fools many on the internet with an absurd rap about a COVID-19 vaccine. And this is from, let's see, Daily Dot. Now, he doesn't believe that these things are fake. I mean, he does believe in the thing. He makes it clear here. But they haven't quite figured it out. I mean, it says here, he's known for bug-based diet, for opposing child gender reassignment, and exposing the occult rituals of 9/11. Anyway, he's just, to me, I'm just saying, this is a very toxic individual from the perspective of the mass media, and for them to allow this to go viral shows that they've kind of lost control, and I don't know what they're going to do with this one. Washington Examiner, man in scrubs raps pro-vaccine bars at a city council meeting. I mean, he's not even technically a rapper. Watch man in scrubs rap pro-vaccine bars at a city council meeting. Okay, it says here they got real during an open mic session Wednesday when a man in hospital scrubs broke out into a pro-vax rap and covered himself in hand sanitizer. He had 2 minutes and 13 seconds to get his message out. Quote, vaccinate You're going to get corona from Mona, he said. Don't wait, don't hesitate. Vaccinate in the Lone Star State. All day long, I want to vaccinate your mom. I want to. Anyway, you can read it yourself. I mean, it's pretty. Vaccinate me in my thong. So, my point being is this: this has been tweeted again and again. It's been repeatedly shared, and there's no putting this genie back in the bottle. And this isn't the only, genie in a bottle situation that I've noticed recently. On Dark Matter Radio now, we have every morning we're joined by Crater Earth USA, and you know who mentioned Crater Earth of all people? Just so happens to be the biggest podcast on the internet, the Joe Rogan Show. Let me go ahead and play this, and then we may go back. I'm not going to make you listen to the Lone Star State troll rap, but you can go ahead and look it up yourself because you're not going to be able to avoid it. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes Let's Go Brandon level because of how hard it has trolled everybody. All right, this is Joe Rogan and Adam Curry mentioning
But
Crater Earth.
I then also have the right to explore other versions that have been told, which includes Crater Earth, which is even...
What's Crater Earth?
The Earth is actually a much larger planet, and we are living in a crater in it, and that's...
Wait a minute.
Now, here's response, and this was what... Let me play that a little bit louder. He says we live on a larger plane, and this is one of the reasons why I even honed in on the whole Crater Earth thing. I was like, wait a second here. Whether he's wrong or right, I'm wrong or right, either way, we're both talking about outside of the establishment model, outside of its perimeters, and certainly outside of the biblical domed, ice-walled Internet 2015 version of the whole flat Earth concept. So no, and so this to me, I'm thinking this is probably in the right direction. So interestingly enough, yeah, here they are talking about more land.
told, which includes Crater right to explore other versions that have been told, which includes Crater Earth, which is even...
What's Crater Earth?
The Earth is actually a much larger planet, and we are living in a crater in it, and that's...
Now, this thing here, the Earth being a much larger planet and the Earth being a crater in it, there actually is a representation of this in Cowboy Bebop, if you've seen that program, where they do have a space travel. It's this futuristic dystopian thing. However, there are some areas where it looks like the Earth, but it's like the flat Earth. It's just this flat area in a crater with some type of a cover, a permeable cover, with multiple Earths adjacent to one another that people are flying in and out in between. Interesting notion, but that's kind of what this is also describing. So it's a good visualization because it looks like, if you look at this TV show, it looks like what he's describing here. But note Joe's reaction when he suggests more land.
Wait a minute.
I'm
We're in
glad.
a crater?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I have...
Oh, and by the way, the missing in the comment section here says, Crater Earth reminds me of Michael Savage. It might actually be him. That's kind of interesting. You're suggesting that Michael Savage is deep faking as Commander Lou from Crater Earth USA. I can't exactly dispute that. I'd have to do a side-by-side, but I'm pretty sure Michael Savage is still in the air. Maxwell Cooper asks if he was talking about Ewar or the other guy, which I can't quite pronounce. And, I don't know where he got this from. I don't know where he came up with this from. But apparently he said an 8-hour video presentation. So I think it might be the one with Ewar.
the freedom to explore
Is the
these
whole
theories.
universe the Earth, and then we're the crater in the center of the universe? Is that
So
what
the
you're saying?
moon is, in essence, if you look at I'm just telling you the theory, right? This is
It's
conspiracy
I don't
therapy.
think we should say theory when it comes to Crater Earth. Let's just
I'm
say
a
the
cons-
wacky story.
See, this is the thing, and this is what I mentioned this morning when Commander Lou was playing this. Was this even a joke? No. Saying, let's just call it the crazy thing and laughing. I'm sorry, there's no punchline there. That wasn't technically a joke, if you actually analyze what he said. So this was an appeal to ridicule. It's what you would call a horse laugh under the, various things you see in debate. And this is just, it's not an argument. So it makes Joe Rogan laugh. It tickled his funny bone. Big deal. It doesn't invalidate it. Really, it doesn't. I mean, there are more laughable things about the 23-year blooper reel we call the International Space Station.
theory when it comes to Crater Earth? Let's just
I'm
say
a
the
cons-
wacky story.
As you
I
wish.
feel like theory it's a little lofty for this one.
Okay.
Maybe I should
A whole bunch
describe
of
it.
YouTube videos with a cool voiceover taught me.
Right, right. Anyway, this is again. This is the Joe Rogan show. This is the most popular podcast on the internet, and now you know why. Because it teaches the masses what ideas are ridiculous and which ones are sacred. The Missing says, Joe, go sell your Urinade, bro. Yeah, a reference. I played that yesterday. I'm not going to play it today, but right now the big talk is about how the anti-vaxxers are into these alternative therapies involving recycling bodily fluids, and Joe Rogan's an advocate of this, and he's done it on video. Okay, let's see. Yeah, pro-vaccine rap by anti-vaxxer at Dallas City Council goes viral. And by the time I looked it up on Twitter, it already reached 1.2 million on just one of these videos. So, like it or not, you're going to hear more of Alex Stein, Primetime 99, described by Jake Gibson as, quote, the most annoying shill on the internet. And that was just a few weeks ago with that whole baby truther show thing. It's funny how things can change, though, like overnight. But that's the nature of the internet. People right now are, they're really hungry for what I've been calling cringe-ertainment. And that's really what it is. It's cringe. I'm not criticizing the performance. I guess it was a good rap, but my point is, people are looking at it out of just pure shock value. Nothing else. All right, let's see. I'm going through comments. TC says, Joe doesn't laugh when you call it a fictitious mental matrix. No, they don't laugh at aliens. They don't laugh at really anything, like I said, that comes from outer space. The idea that, oh yeah, on January 18th, there's a 47-kilometer wide meteor that's going to pass by the Earth, and it's the closest object to pass us in the last 200 years. Like, that's not funny to them. And it just happens to coincide with not only all of these major movie productions, including the one with Leonardo DiCaprio about an object falling from the sky, but also U.S. Space Force drills about wars in outer space. So you have all these things happening at once, and to me it's all just agenda, but they don't see that. They don't see it. It's still a conspiracy theory that the feds were somehow behind 1/6, and it's like, well, that's only part of the story. When they say, and that's what they're going to start saying, 1/6 was an inside job, it's very misleading because it doesn't go far enough. The whole thing was a psyop. Ashley Babbitt's not dead. But nobody on the world stage is going to go that far. InfoWars won't go that far. All right, let's see. Commenter says, mass psychosis is when everyone thinks we live on a ball. Yeah, it's interesting how these terms, cult, terms like even conspiracy theory are very subjective. And conspiracy theory is what you just call the news or the beliefs of the other side. At this point. Like, you can laugh at people who think that chemtrails are killing us all, but the people who are laughing at that probably believe in climate change killing us all, and it's the same story. All right, let's continue. Going through some comments here on DLive. So if you want to go to DLive, it's infiniteplane.radio. All right, let's see. Yurt Mama says Joe Rogan is a spook. Well, Joe Rogan did this amazing feat of mental gymnastics when he was able to deconstruct the Apollo 11 moon hoaxery and then go back to believing in it. Like, you can't really do that, I'm sorry. You cannot reverse engineer in your own mind how they faked the moon landing and actually see the truth of it and then forget that in order to go back to the official explanation. I guess you could. I just imagine it requires money or maybe a twisting of the arm, but there's no logical path. There just isn't. Robin Sage. Who is Robin Sage? I've been looking into this question and I'm doing some more investigation into it, but as I've been mentioning, North Carolina is on alert, I guess. They know that there's 25 counties where there's going to be simulated or stimulated war on freedom fighters. There's a few stories about that. It's starting on the 22nd of this month. But the whole thing is called Operation Robin Sage, and they're fighting against a group. This is what it's called here. Now here's the group. Okay, so it's Robin Sage. Members of the military and civilians are taking part as Special Forces students opposing the fictional nation of Pineland. Many military members will pose as guerrilla freedom fighters known as Pineland's Resistance Movement. So you have this storyline here. Robin Sage is the operation, and it's Special Forces versus Pineland. Now the thing is, I looked into the name Robin Sage, and so it starts January 22nd and goes through February 4th with students from U.S. Army John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School at Fort Bragg. It says here, in order to maintain realism, blank gunfire and flares will be used in the training. So I found a few other interesting things about this. It says during 2002's training, Deputy Sheriff Randall Butler killed a first lieutenant and also wounded Staff Sergeant Phelps when he saw their behavior as suspicious. So there was a situation last time they did this Robin Sage thing where, yeah, some sheriff shot a couple of military personnel. So anyway, I'm bringing this up just because it's coming up very soon, and these drills, quote unquote, are usually just rehearsals for something they're going to do later. So I looked into this Robin Sage character. Well, I'm like, what does this mean? What is Robin Sage? And what it turns out to be is this. You have a honeypot, a fake internet character that was put up here in order to just determine how easy it would be to infiltrate and obtain military secrets. So Robin Sage is this fictional character. And so it's kind of like it's part of a black hat operation to see how susceptible people could be to online honeypots, trolls, basically, or bots. And apparently, yeah, that's a major weakness for a lot of people. Let's see, this is where it's at. It says, I watched the version of Demolition Man where the Pizza Hut won the franchise wars and not Taco Bell. Yeah, I've seen that alternative version. I think you can't find a much better version, or rather prediction for the future than Demolition Man. I mean, 2022 is the year of Soylent Green, and even Drudge Report has covered that. But the idea with Demolition Man, of this schism in society where you have the outsiders are all dirty, unvaxxed heathens outside the cities, and the people in the cities are vaxxed, socially distanced. There are so many aspects of 2020 that were reflected in that film. Lack of toilet paper, and yeah, Taco Bell was the only restaurant in that future. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open phones here in just a moment. This was where it's at. It says, Crater Earth is a very polished broadcaster. Yeah, I've been listening to his work for a little while. At first, I just found him on random. It was like around Thanksgiving. And there's just this video that came up, and it was like, how to tell your family you live in a crater or something. It just sounded absurd. But his explanation to me was just actually, when you hear the word crater, you think of impact crater. But that's not what he's talking about. It's a suggestion that the Earth is bigger than we've been told. But that there is more land, but there's, in his view, there's some kind of a barrier around us. I mean, it's all very interesting. It's a little more interesting to me than the idea that there's a dome and an ice wall and we don't know what's beyond. I'm not really too keen on that. I think that's kind of a way to stop people from being curious. Because the only thing that makes sense to me, if there's any reality to this notion of NASA faking everything, is they're hiding land. And that's probably where they're going to get all these resources they're going to be mining from, quote, outer space from. A potentially hazardous asteroid wider than 34 football fields will zip past Earth next week. Now, why didn't they just say 33? They're always doing that. The SLS rocket, 33 stories. 322 feet high is what they're saying it's going to be, which is a major skull and bones society number. Everything about this thing is so occulted. But anyway, another question I have, and I'm always asking this, is how do they know that this rock is going to come within a few hundred miles of the Earth? And they know with such precision. but they can never actually. I mean, how many times have we been told we're going to be hit? There's going to be an impact. Like they're always telling us it's going to come so close, but it's always they're always a little bit off. So their aim outbound is always perfect. They can always land probes on whatever distant moving object they want to land it on. They hit a probe on a comet 200 plus million miles away. No big deal. But they're always a little bit off on their math and calculations with the incoming. I find that to be very peculiar. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going through comments on YouTube. Escape from Absalom was a 2022 Prison Island movie. Interesting. You know, one of the best examples of Utopia is probably the best example I've seen so far. I mean, there's a few other movies that are pretty blatant in what we would call a conditioning and predictive programming, but Utopia goes deeper. Because in that one, the Bill Gates-like character has a company that creates synthetic beef, which gives children the flu. And as a result of this flu, there's this push for a vaccine. It turns out the flu was a fake event. It was a psyop he created. And the psyop he created had an ulterior motive. But he used crisis actors. So you have an actual movie, John Cusack, where they're using crisis actors. People pretending to have this mysterious flu in order to sell vaccines. So you can see why they pulled it after one season. I think that's a very sensitive topic there. But what's more, it wasn't even a real flu. It was a psyop to sell the vaccine because it was to save the planet. They needed to, sterilize the generation or two. So everything that you could find in 2020 had something in that movie. It was just too perfect. There was even a scene where a bunch of protesters were kneeling for the vaccine. They all just started taking a knee all of a sudden. I'm like, well, that's interesting because 2020, everyone was just kneeling. Tyrone says football fields are standard units of measurement. Yeah, this one's 34 football fields. The other day it was the size of the Statue of Liberty, which to me it's just like when it hits, you're going to lose your liberty. On election day, there was one the size of Trump Tower that was going to hit the White House. So if Trump won, you see, it would have destroyed America or whatever. Always stories with all these things. And you have to remind people, like the true believers, that this is a cartoon. This is a CGI representation. This is not a photograph. We don't have anything even close to this. It's all simulation. But the people who grew up in the metaverse aren't going to know the difference. I actually have this theory, and I think it's sound. This is something I'm going to talk about during the first IPS symposium when we go over the evolution of the space station's presentation. But anyway, you have the special effects guru, Douglas Trumbull from Space Odyssey 2001. Anyway, there's a pretty good piece by him where he's talking about how special effects have kind of been degraded, more or less. And I'm paraphrasing, he didn't use that word, but basically said, why CGI has not outpaced the effects of Kubrick's film. So the whole point of this article here from IndieWire.com is he has some material, they have some special effects that still look good today, whereas if you look at CGI from 10 years ago or 15 years ago, it doesn't age very well at all. And my point was, I think this has been intentional. I think they have been dumbing people down visually, lowering their expectations, and really just distorting their sense of reality, lowering their standards on purpose. And I think it was in order to get people ready for the space when everyone is integrated into the metaverse. I don't think it's about people going to these distant outposts, the new frontier. No, it's basement dwelling for all mankind. And I think that a big part of the transition from being people who move around the world and pollute to being stationary, locked down, is getting people used to the idea that, one, we're toxic to the planet and everyone else is toxic, but also the idea that this metaverse is a valid replacement for what's out there. And they have, I think, over time, they have blurred the distinction between real and fake in so many different ways, especially visually, to where people can't tell the difference. People can't tell the difference between something. I mean, look at all these videos by Boston Dynamic where you have these robots running down the street. You know, they look like Terminators, and these things go viral, and people share them, and they say, "Hey, look, killer robots on the way." Then you find out it's CGI. They're robotics. They have some pretty advanced robotics, but they cannot go that far. Not even close. But the thing is, people can't tell the difference, and I think this has all been a conspiracy. All right, let's see here. Apparently, people are having some buffering. You know, this has been happening quite a lot, actually. Apparently, our volume and everything else, we've been having gremlins. I've been discussing this, but no big deal. I record everything. Everything is backed up. So if we do have issues like that, it tends to be fixed on the replay. I'm going to play a short clip from Ted Cruz here, trying to get some information about whether or not the event on 1/6 was a quote inside job. Again, this is not the full truth, even if what he's saying has validity.
They're similar to the other answers. I cannot answer that.
Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, offering cash rewards leading to information leading to the arrest. This was posted, and then...
Anyway, you can listen for yourself. We don't get any answers out of it, but Ted Cruz is basically grilling them about this guy named Epps, who was spotted on video telling the protesters to go into the Capitol. And people around him were chanting, "Fed, Fed, Fed," because he was an obvious Fed. Well, anyway, the Q&A went nowhere. They didn't really give away anything, of course. But again, it doesn't tell you the whole story. The whole story is we're looking at a psychological operation and not a false flag. And you know, that's what 9/11 was an inside job got wrong. And I don't think it's a coincidence that right now on Netflix you have a TV show called Inside Job. I think what we're looking at here is the creation of a new guardrail narrative, is what I would call it. They're setting up a new narrative to where the people who know the thing wasn't as presented on TV, or at least not as the way they described it, they're going to call it a false flag. The feds did it with some agitators, but they're not going to call it a hoax. And that's an important distinction. I mean, the distinction between hoax and false flag is the difference between 3,000 died and none died, between it being a theatrical production and an act of war under a quote false flag. This is where it's at. Says everything is so fake. Media analysis is boring these days. It's certainly more fake than real. And you know what? The other thing is, and as we've seen since 2020, the public's ability to perceive the difference is so bad that they fall for anything with no evidence. So we don't even get the spectacle of an alien invasion. We don't get something memorable. Everything we get is secondhand, bad crisis acting. I've had a number of people going deeper into this Bronx fire. On 1/9, 19 stories, initially reported 19 died. And, you know, you just go down the whole list of numbers, dates, the time, 11 in the morning. You can find many examples. I think he was even called Twin Pine, or Twin Parks, rather. See how the twin is in Twin Towers? The whole story, top to bottom, hints at 9/11. A bunch of 9/11 reminders. So what's the purpose? What's the point? Well, my thinking is the next 9/11 is obviously going to be the space 9/11. And so this event, we're talking about a fire, happened to be caused by space heaters. And if you search space heaters right now, what you find, again, this is not unintentional. These are memes they put out there because they're communicating, I believe, the meta script, the big picture. So you've already got the idea here of a 9/11 being brought back to mind in so many ways. And then space heaters, as space war above heats up, as objects from above are suddenly falling from the sky. And this is being reinforced, of course, as I said, by all of the movies, the propaganda, the agitprop on Netflix, and of course the Space Force drills. And it even goes further to say Space heaters are symbols of iniquity. So there you have another aspect here, meaning when you look at the bigger picture, what we're looking at, the I can't breathe narrative from COVID to the police oppression, the whole thing, even the censorship, everything about restricting the flow of breath, people not being able to gather and breathe together. This has been, I believe, a zeitgeist shaping operation. The I can't breathe because of what? Well, what is it that's killing our atmosphere? Pollution from the same Western chauvinism that is oppressing the poor. This is all basically an indictment on of capitalism. Capitalism has been on trial. It's killing the world. It's oppressing everybody. So here you have a group of immigrants who are financially unable to afford better, and they have to live here and use space heaters, and it kills them. And the space wars are also on the same ideological lines as the space wars are. It's the communists, space commies versus these capitalist space cowboys. The whole subtext to Don't Look Up is, if we don't listen to the scientists, if we put these capitalists first, we're all going to die because we're going to plunder space. We're going to try to enrich ourselves from space. And that's what happens in the movie. Instead of blowing up the comet, they try to mine the comet and everybody dies. So what you're looking at here is they're trying to mine. It's like the Titanic. The iceberg is coming, and these people are just not taking the threat seriously. They don't believe it. They think they're impervious. So we are seeing, I believe, the Titanic, and it's about to be hit by some iceberg. But I don't think it's going to be an iceberg or a space iceberg / comet. I think it's going to be this China-Russia space war narrative. But again, space heaters, no, it's just a bad inside joke by your NWO metascriptors. Fenris points out Back to the Future Twin Pine Mall. Right, that came to mind as well. The Mystic says space heaters are fake AF. Right, I agree. The Mystic says I'm almost certain that Owen is the QAnon shaman. Yeah, I'm still with that. I'm still on Owen Schroyer is the QAnon shaman, just as Alex Jones is Bill Hicks. It makes more sense than not, and I have the pictures to prove it. And until I can see them in the same room, I mean, phone interviews don't count. That's easy to fake. Cooper points out that the building was 333. Yeah, we actually had an Infinite Plane Radio reporter go check out the scene, and I got some pictures. And from what I've seen, and from what the pictures show, it could easily have been a theatrical production on one side, just on a designated part of the building. It looks like theater to me. And the crisis actors give it away. I mean, one of the first actors on the scene said, it seemed like something out of a movie. I mean, every single psyop, you have someone who has to say, it didn't seem real, it seemed like a movie. Okay, so your frame of reference is the movies because why? Because you are probably faking it or something. And that's a very consistent thing. Okay, I'm going up through my Discord server. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm looking at all this fallout from Primetime 99, Alex Stein doing his thing. I mean, really, listen to these headlines. Vaccination freak-a-leak. YouTubers satirical pro-vaccine rap anthem dupes the far right. Alex Stein had me at vaccinate me in my thong. You see, what we're looking at here is no one knows how to take it, and everybody's hair trigger, ready to just react and shoot the other side. So the anti-vaxxers think he's a pro-vaxxer, the pro-vaxxer thinks he's an anti-vaxxer, and they just fire away. Meanwhile, he's kind of ambiguous. I mean, he's a flat earther, I believe, but it's even hard to say. It's really hard to say. So anyway, we'll see. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a vax. To me, I don't think he's staunchly anti-vax. I think he's whatever's going to get him more clicks is actually what I kind of suspect. But you got to see some of these responses, though, and that's why this story is not going to go away. So I made you listen to a small part of it earlier. A Salty Cracker, YouTuber, far right, definitely fooled by this one. Look at his tweet. His response was, this frontline medical hero is completely out of breath in under a minute singing this AIDS. These cultists don't care about your health. So Salty Cracker is a comedian. And even a trained comedian, a successful comedian like that, is fooled by Stein. I'm going to go ahead and play just a second of it here, since we're on the topic. I'll go towards the... I'm not going to torture you with the whole thing. I'm not going to replay any part you've already heard, but I'll see if I can catch that line about the thong.
Hear my song, vaccinate me in my thong. Vaccination, right or wrong. Dr. Fauci, give me that ouchie. I want it in my body.
All right, there we go. Okay, let's continue. Oh yes. This thing about climate lockdowns is where they're going to continue with the "I can't breathe" narrative. And I'm telling you, this forced meme thing with it is ongoing. You even heard it at Astro World, and I brought this up how the lawyer representing the victims of the Astro World crushing, where they were chanting "I can't breathe," is Benjamin Crumb, Floyd's lawyer. And "I can't breathe," if you ask me, is just code for, of course, the oppression of the West that has to be overthrown before they destroy the world, before they sink this Titanic. And that's why we're constantly shown images of King Bezos and even lately Leonardo DiCaprio on their mega yachts. What better symbol for the Titanic than billionaires on mega yachts? And these are the billionaires who, Bezos built the Tower of Babel, poked his head up into space. Massive, massive carbon footprint. And now here he is saying, yeah, the world's going to end. Back in 2017, we're going to have to freeze civilization of stasis. If you want freedom, you have to go to space because we're going to lock down the earth. And yet here he is in a mega yacht. All right, let's see here. This is where it's at. It says Salty Cracker is funny. Well, Salty Cracker is a comedian, but what I'm suggesting here is that a lot of these people who are partisans kind of just took the bait here. They just immediately thought this guy's obviously a crazy leftist. But the thing is, it's believable. If you think back, what was the thing that I think it was called? It was vaccine, as in like movie scene, vaccine with Stephen Colbert. So this was actually on TV, and millions of Americans loved it. Stephen Colbert wasn't mocked or considered to be a crazy or off his meds and all these horrible things they said about Stein. This was considered to be just good entertainment. Let me just play a short clip. And this is the cringiest thing I think I've ever seen. This is Vaccine. Okay, I can hardly handle that. And then he gets up and he has all these individuals come out dressed up as vaccines, big needles, and then they dance. So this was back in, let's see here. And I'm just pointing out that this is what America loves right now. This is The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, 420 million hits. Everybody loved this. This is on CBS. Nobody ripped on Stephen Colbert for this. So this is not even, this is actually, I would say, cringier than what happened over there at the City Council. All right, let's see. This is where it's at. It says, AIDS, America is dying slowly. Angst G says, Leonardo DiCaprio's tiny feet. Yes, his tiny feet. We had pointed that out, that DiCaprio's tiny footprints make up for his massive carbon footprint, if you've seen his actual feet. Hulk Hogan believes that COVID-19 vaccine killed 99-year-old Betty White. Okay, let's see here. Hulk Hogan, wrestling legend, says he believes that Bob Saget, Betty White, and Sidney Poitier both were killed by the COVID vaccine. Okay. Now, I think he tweeted it, and then he deleted it. Yep, he said 100%. Betty and Sidney were also jabbed, and they're dropping like flies, said Hulk Hogan. But they'll never say it. The pro wrestler then deleted his comment, but screenshots have continued to circulate. People are ripping on him, saying, kind of funny, a guy who took copious amounts of steroids for years is anti-vax. Says Hulk Hogan is anti-vax. Next, you're going to tell us Ninja Turtles are climate change deniers and ruin our whole childhoods. See, the irony here is on the subject of the Ninja Turtles. The Ninja Turtles, much like everything else on TV, it's just programming. And so the bad guy is always a CEO who wants to pollute the rivers. They exist because some rich capitalist who wanted to make money dumped some poison somewhere into the environment, and they were somehow created by genetic mutation. So you always have the same bad guys. And so, yes, the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing is also suggesting that we need to stop the way that our world's being run. We need to change everything, lock it down, burn it down, build back better. So they're all pushing the same green agenda. So of course they're not going to be climate change agendas. Deniers. Climate change deniers is also one of these statements one of these phrases that it's very disingenuous. They haven't established that it exists. So it's like, are you a Bigfoot denier? Are you a Mandela effect denier? Well, no. First, you have to establish that these things exist. Then you can deny it. And again, it's the shifting of the burden of proof. But the irony here is that, yeah, climate change is a hoax, been going on for 33 years. It's always been a mask for something else. So this person is actually defending their indoctrination. Real asteroids that could smash into Earth just like Don't Look Up. So this is like a new trendy thing to be afraid of. But again, this is not a conspiracy theory. It's science. I'm going to open phones here in just a moment. I believe I have a few voicemails I wanted to get to as well. If you look on the screen, you're seeing a couple of normal people at Walmart. Now, if you thought things were this bad, that going into the Walmart would kill you, why wouldn't you just have it delivered to your house? I don't know. But you have people who are now putting on the equivalent of space suits. And they're going out and shopping in spacesuits. I've just been predicting for a couple of years that we would see the introduction and normalization of spacesuit and spacesuit fashion, and it's here. And not only is it here, but it's now being marketed. You actually have commercial spacesuits being marketed to people, so you can buy your spacesuits. This is interesting. Joe Rogan says Getter. If anyone here uses Getter, he calls it Fugazi, which means fake, because apparently they are faking his sub count. A lot of people jumped onto Getter thinking it was going to be the new Twitter because Joe Rogan went over there. Well, listen to this. Joe says, they take all of my Twitter followers, so my Twitter followers, 7.8 million, and they port them over. So I start over at Getter with 7.8 million. So whatever I have now, it's really like I only have 200,000. So Getter is Fugazi. Again, it's a slang term for fake. But just interesting to note here that this new platform, nothing to see there, just totally fake. Let's see, going through some comments. Adaptivia says, let's switch the jab with 4 steroids and see what they say. Yeah, I guess that's really what it comes down to. It's the force thing. Alright, let's continue. I was going to open up phones, but I want to make sure I have all these different things I had earmarked covered. Yes, we have Owen Schroyer playing the role of QAnon shaman. People have tried to debunk this. The best they can do is say he interviewed him on the phone. That doesn't really mean anything. It really doesn't. You know, we're talking about professionals, people who have been a part of this deep fake industry for decades. You know, he's under the tutelage of Bill Hicks, no less. This was posted in my Discord server. This is from Evolvement. Appreciate you posting this. It's he breaks apart the hammer and sickle of the communists, and it turns into a very convincing symbol of Saturn. If you look at the sickle and the hammer, kind of interesting. Wouldn't surprise me if it was intentional. Someone pointed out to me that the name Fauci actually means sickle. And of course, Saturn and the sickle are synonymous. The reason why, of course, is it's an agrarian deity, god of a harvest. So the Grim Reaper, the skull face with the blade, is the god of the harvest, and it represents when, of course, the winter months, everything is dying. You know what's interesting now is the movie Scream is out, the newest version of Scream, one of these horror movies. And if you look at the iconography here, it's basically the Grim Reaper. Very Saturnian, dressed all in black, running around with a knife. So this is all symbolism, and we talked about this with the movie Halloween Kills, which came out in the fall. The symbol of the knife in the context of witchcraft, the knife represents the high priest. The chalice is the goddess. So these things have double meanings. So the interesting thing is with the Halloween movie, the guy who does the killing is actually wearing a William Shatner mask, Captain Kirk. So you have Captain Kirk's face as the knife man. So this Halloween, we're watching this, and it's like, well, he just kind of got out there in the memosphere with the Halloween movie, and then he goes into space on October the 13th. So he's the Rocket Man, and he's the Knife Man. And at this time, you have a lot of knives in the news. You have David Ames, Sir David Ames, gets stabbed 17 times. Then you have the Astro World Human Sacrifice event, where Drake comes out and sings a song called Knife Talk, and Travis Scott is seen wearing a William Shatner mask. So you have this reoccurring theme and this reference, this reoccurring stabbiness to everything. So then you go a little further, and then just more recently, Snoop Dogg had this event. There's this big festival. Snoop Dogg was in attendance, and a rapper named Drakeo gets a knife to the throat. So it's like, oh, Drake, Knife Talk. Then you have, is it Drakeo? Yeah, then Drakeo the Ruler, and he gets knifed to the throat on December the 19th in Los Angeles, and that was at the Once Upon a Time festival. So there's been a reoccurring theme, though, of human sacrifice, of stabbing, of the knife man on the loose in various incarnations, and so it's just, again, consistent with what we've seen to have this image being put out there in front of the public again. Knife and the black robes and the skull face. Reading some comments here. Fenner says, Winona Ryder from Beetlejuice, Helena Bonham Carter. Back to Winona in Stranger Things. Right. If you want to call in about any of these movies, I want to probably do a study on a lot of these more recent films too. These stabby ones. We talk a lot about sci-fi, the reset movies, and the reoccurring themes, the uploading of consciousness into the cloud, AI gods, everything they're preparing us for. But I want to kind of revisit a lot of the stabby stuff and just see if there's any common threads. Because there were some interesting threads anyway that we found with the Rust killing, with Alec Baldwin shooting Helena Hutchins. And even that story has evolved a little bit. Hannah Reid, the armorer, actually predicted on her Facebook that she was about to have a fall from grace. You have everything that you would expect to find with a psyop or a fake event. But one of the interesting little storylines that goes into this thing is you have the number one Trump hater being Alec Baldwin shooting a guy with Trump's birthday. And then Baldwin's quoted as saying, playing Donald Trump made me wish for a meteor to hit Donald Trump. And then we're watching this movie, Don't Look Up, just came out, popularized over New Year's, and they're like, yeah, 6 months and 14 days later, the Earth's going to be hit by a comet. So 6/14 would be Trump's birthday. So you have this connection, Trump's birthday, meteor, Alec Baldwin shooting a guy with Trump's birthday. Interesting connections, at a minimum. Other ones would be at the event, at the place where the shooting happened, you had a guy get bitten by a spider, someone from the crew, and he almost lost his arm. And the main picture of Hannah Reid has her standing there with her shirt up, and she's got a big tattoo of a spider on her stomach. The whole thing just seems incredibly scripted, like everything else. But I think there's an interesting bit of a storyline here that if you wanted to connect some dots, where you could maybe make the case that Baldwin was set up, possibly even his ex-wife having something to do with it. I mean, there's a bit of speculation there, but I've connected some dots we may go into. I've been talking about Joe Rogan as someone who is basically setting an example of why we need to censor podcasting, because podcasting has been kind of off the radar compared to video platforms. And listen to this. This is just a typical thing. Rolling Stone, a menace to public health. Doctors demand Spotify put an end to COVID-19 misinformation. Here you have an actual letter going around, a signed petition, calling on Spotify to establish clear policies on limiting the spread of misinfo, starting with Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan has been the target for some time. And when this started, they had actually pulled 42 tracks from his podcast. And on this channel, especially last year, we were looking very closely at a lot of the patterns. And the number 42 is used almost exclusively with downfalls, deaths. And so when I saw the 42 tracks being pulled, I had predicted then, hey, it looks like they're going to use Joe as an excuse to go after podcasting. And I would say that since then, it has actually kind of borne out, especially how every little thing he says is taken as some type of an assault on science, on medicine. And now he's being looked at again as a menace to public health because memes kill. One thing that we have learned, one thing that has been established since 2020 is that memes kill. And this was actually predicted. If you follow the celebrities, you can actually see what's going to happen next. And I remember the Kardashians had frozen their social media. And I remember thinking, who cares? Why would it matter? The Kardashians freezing their social media. And I don't even think it lasted that long. But the whole point of it was, here it is. This is from 2020. Kim Kardashian and other celebs froze their social media. And the reason why? Conspiracy theories. So at the same time that people were out there, in their homes, quarantined, they're getting people used to the idea of Instagram freezes because of, quote, hate speech or conspiracy theories. Even, look, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Perry, aka JonBenet Ramsey, has also taken a part in this. So they're getting people used to the idea that we need to lock down not just the planet, but to save the planet. We need to lock down to save mankind from itself, COVID, etc. At some point, we're going to have to lock down the internet. And the celebrities always lead the way. So I'm just pointing this out. Wait for the internet quarantines where you're not going to get back on until you've been given the digital equivalent of a vaccination. Side note here, if you're looking at the screen, you've got Kate Perry with her parents. Now I'm going to show you another image here of JonBenet Ramsey's parents. And what you're going to see here is that JonBenet Ramsey's parents look exactly like Kate Perry's parents. And when I say exactly, I mean the only thing that's really changed, I guess, would be changes that you would expect to be consistent with time. Her dad has shaved his head. He has a really trendy ear piercing. Better dressed, kind of hip. Mom hasn't changed anything. Better hairstyle, but no cosmetics. So yes, look at Kate Perry's parents and JonBenet Ramsey's parents, because the theory, so-called conspiracy theory, it's not even a conspiracy theory, it's an observation, that JonBenet Ramsey looks exactly like a baby Kate Perry. Yeah, this is actually in itself kind of odd that if it's just a conspiracy theory, why would the parents be such a perfect match? So to me, it's like, well, maybe they sold their kid into the Illuminati to be an entertainer and a death faker early on, and they get rewarded with this glamorous life after. And it looks like they've done very well taking part in this. Okay, let's see, going through comments. Lots of people here in the chat. This is where it's at. TV says booster rockets, booster shots. Yeah, strong correlation. I don't even think it's a coincidence that the World Trade Tower Phoenix, well, that's what they were going to call it. The One World Trade Tower that replaced the Twins looks like a giant needle. No coincidence at all. Because the needle is the symbol of the new age. I think it's the path into this new world. You have to go through this new it's basically a blood pact with the state. It's more than an inoculation. What it says is, I am in agreement with establishment science and media. I trust this. I am part of this collective, and I accept the premise. And if you accept the premise, everything else just falls from that. They need you to believe in viruses. This is why anti-vax versus pro-vax doesn't even really make a difference to me. It's like you're the same thing. Because both sides believe that there's this hypothetical, invisible, body-possessing demon. And both sides have crisis actors. Both sides have an agenda of moving society forward. It's the classic Hegelian dialectic. And I'm surprised that so many people fall lockstep into it. It's like Proud Boys versus Soy Boys. Pick a side. Like, I don't really want to be on the side of Proud Boys or Soy Boys, competing for the favor of daddy government. I think I'll just stay off the stage, to the extent that they allow us to. Commenter says they are using humans as hosts. You know, last night I was speaking with a caller about this notion that maybe they're using... Well, we had a voicemail where someone had suggested... Actually, this is actually pretty important if you think about it. A caller left a message explaining how his friend had spent $250 to go hear General Flynn talk. And General Flynn said, there's going to be an EMP soon. And the EMP is going to blow up everybody's brains, basically, the people who have been vaccinated. He said it's going to black everything out, shut down the internets, but if you've been vaxxed, the 5G towers and everything are going to somehow be involved in some type of reaction where people's heads are going to explode. Now, this is nonsense, probably, but it's coming from the main Kool-Aid dispenser, General Flynn. So when someone says here they're using humans as hosts, well, one of the things we talked about was, well, maybe instead of blowing up your head, maybe this whole operation was about taking over. Maybe, as you posted here, humans as hosts. Like maybe you're getting an operating system injected that your demonic host will have to use, or your AI host. An AI alien AI invasion. Maybe it's just maybe that's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, it's all very sci-fi, but what isn't sci-fi? And that's what all the movies have been suggesting anyway. And it doesn't even have to be literal. Like, it doesn't have to be literal invasion of the body snatchers. It can just be ideological subversion. It's kind of the same thing. Just a metaphor. I find the whole image of Russian vids on that movie They Live, where, and you're familiar with this imagery, where they put on the glasses and they can see all of the aliens in control and they can see the real agendas. But when they take off the glasses, they can't. Well, I think we're in the inverse of this scenario, where you take off the glasses in order to see, because everybody's compulsively wearing the glasses. But it's the same situation. And yeah, I know it's Roddy, Rowdy, Piper, not Russian vids, but it's easy to confuse them. Let's see, commenter says, do you ever feel like a plastic bag drifting in the wind, waiting to start again? You mean like being recycled? I have a case of bottled water, and on the label it says, recycle us so we can be reborn. I might come back as a pair of pants. And I'm like, okay, my bottled water is imploring me to go recycle it so I can have a better life next time. So, yeah, I mean, I think this whole recycling is actually part of the earth worship. I mean, not a coincidence that the World Economic Forum is advancing Gaia as their new agenda. I mean, Gaia. Gaia. And for them, of course, they have this is about advancing AI. It says the World Economic Forum's AI team. Global AI Action Alliance. So on the one hand, you have this idea of it being about artificial intelligence. But then if you look up Gaia, it's actually a name of the earth god that you can worship Now, the way you pray to Gaia, if you want to do that, is you go recycle. And they're getting people used to the idea, I think, of recycling each other. Like they want, like, man, like we just need to go ahead and just go full Soylent Green. You know, I brought up the other day the Wall-E movie from 2008, the Pixar film, where it does have a cannibalism kind of a subtext. You have all these fattened people in this space ark waiting for the earth to be habitable again, just like after Noah's flood. I mean, this is a Noah's flood story. They repackaged Noah's flood, but they made it for the climate change generation here. But what this YouTuber had kind of figured out, and I agree with them 100%, and notice A113 on the wall there. They use a lot of numerology in these Disney films. Film theory, Wall-E's unseen cannibalism. So let me go ahead and just jump on over to about halfway through the video. I'm going to play about 30 seconds. This is Film Theory, Wall-E's unseen cannibalism.
Axiom is a second-generation General Dynamics Type 3 hull configuration made of a patented nuclear-embedded positronium alloy.
Which would seem to indicate that it's running on nuclear power. While food supplies will quickly dwindle after a few years, nuclear reactors get a whole lot more bang for the buck. For example, when fully reacted, 1 kilogram of uranium-235, popular reaction agent, produces as much energy as 1,500 tons of coal. So a small amount of that stuff will cover you for quite a long time. And it's not like uranium is going to turn to mush like a...
So right now he's talking about how they power the ship, and he's getting into the economics of it. And what he's determined here, and I think his logic is pretty sound, is that the AI bot, and another reoccurring theme here, there is a bot like HAL 9000 in 2001 Space Odyssey. There's a bot that has taken over the ship. And so it doesn't really have empathy in its considerations. It's just thinking about sustainability and accomplishing the mission. So what he figures out here is that the only way for them to have maintained their level of body fat and their lifestyle of just sitting there lazy and not grow, I mean, just basically drinking these slushies all day, these smoothies, is that they have to be recycling. So here is where he gets into that.
I mean, food needs to come from somewhere, and note that we don't see any animals on the ship other than humans. Unlike water, food is more complicated than simply a bunch of hydrogen and oxygen atoms put together, so you'd need some ingredients for the food from somewhere. And even if they had developed some meal replacement superfood like Soylent, which delivers all your essential calories, it still requires plants. Soy. Not even the ship's captain recognizes what a plant is or how it grows.
Where's the thingy? Plant. Right.
So what exactly would the hypothetical food be made out of? Also, if the Axiom...
Exactly. What would it be made out of? And this is where he figures out 700 years, and he looks at how many bodies with a 200-year lifespan, and it starts to only make sense, especially then when you get into their body types and their body fat composition. And of course, what he arrives at is the logical conclusion that they probably were recycling their dead, but then there's more. Because when you actually look into the film itself, like every other film or cartoon, you have these instances of predictive programming or little hidden clues, symbolism, etc. And in this case, they give you plenty if you're looking, if you're aware of it. They give you plenty to suggest that, yeah, these people are actually eating one another, because cannibalism is probably one of the messages they want to convey here, that the system that we have is cannibalistic. The whole movie is about how mankind is a parasite and has destroyed the earth, and the earth is no longer habitable because of his wickedness. Just like with the biblical flood, wickedness gets flooded. In the movie Wall-E, mankind's pollution destroys the earth. It's not habitable. The sky is occluded with space junk, the oceans are covered in trash, there's no life anywhere. Until the robots finish cleaning it up. But the humans on board the ship are now a microcosm. They're basically living just as they were on the earth. And they're exploiting the lower class, the robots, to maintain their lavish lifestyles. But they're also engaging in cannibalism. Alright, let's see. And beyond cannibalism, you also have, I mean, this is almost akin to cannibalism. And this is something else, because just because this is 2022, this is the year of Soylent Green. And Soylent Green is green. You know, recycling is green. The green movement is all about sustainability. So Astrocrete is a concrete created by scientists using astronaut blood as a binder, along with extraterrestrial dust. Futuristic space concrete using astronauts' blood. And the idea here is that you're going to be donating your blood. Astrocrete has a compressive strength 300% higher than normal concrete. So I think what you're looking at here is, I mean, are we really listening to NASA and company talking about donating blood and mixing it with mud in order to build structures to live in? Does this even sound feasible to you? And it's not just blood. There are other things that they'll be using, just any body fluid. But basically, it sounds to me like they're trying to convey, if anything, they're trying to convey the idea that you have to sacrifice your body to go into heaven, that you have to give up your earthly existence. There's a collectivism, sacrifice your individuality, give some blood for the community. So scientists have a mad, brilliant plan to construct bases on Mars made of blood, sweat, tears, and urine. Astrocrete adds protein from human blood plasma and urea to bricks. They estimate that a crew of astronauts could produce 500 kilograms of blood bricks within a 2-year period. 500 kilograms of blood bricks. All right, anyway, that's it's not necessarily cannibalism, but in a way you can see what I mean here. It's the self-sacrifice is what I mean when I say kind of a cannibalism here. But everybody gives their part. So if you're willing to give a little bit of blood for the community, well then why wouldn't you be open to getting a pokey for the community? That's kind of what I think we're really seeing here. It's the ethos of collectivism and sacrificing your own interests for everybody else. I'll see here. All the best QAnon people going to Trump's rally in Arizona. So on the 15th, there's going to be a Trump rally for some reason. People are still following this. I mean, I'm following this because we are looking at I think, a slow motion train wreck. I'm not sure where it ends, but Ron Watkins is probably going to be involved. And what's more, in the crowd, you can have Michael Protzman, negative 48, the guy who said that JFK and Michael Jackson are coming back with, who is the other one? There's so many people coming back. Oh yeah, John Lennon. And you know, in fact, they say John Lennon's going to be at this event. It wouldn't make a lot of sense because John Lennon, if you follow this, the death faker John Lennon came back as Steve Jobs. So is Steve Jobs going to show up with
Can I?
JFK?
So I wasn't on your show. I didn't listen today.
This is Michael Protzman talking about who's going to show up.
I didn't really realize you were on earlier today. But do you think that Kirsten W is dead, or do you think she's alive?
He fell asleep, according to this person while they were talking. But anyway, here's what he said. He said, at Trump's rally, there's going to be, quote, live entertainment, and there's going to be a band made up of Michael Jackson, Prince, Whitney Houston, Janis Joplin, Tupac, and John Lennon. Now, this follows the absurd thing from back in November where they said the Rolling Stones were going to actually be played by Jackson, Prince, JFK Jr., and Aaliyah. This is bad. This is toxic levels of Kool-Aid. But now look who else is going. This on the screen, if you're looking at this individual, this is Jim Watkins. Jim Watkins is the father of Ron Watkins, the 33-year-old who is involved with the Pillow Guy, the admitted crack smoker, trying to overturn the election. Jim Watkins is one of the owners of 8chan, and this is the guy that was believed to be Q or close to Q. But anyway, he's going to the rally.
Going to the Trump rally. I can't wait to get there. God bless the USA.
So there you have it. It's going to be a very Q-friendly event. Again, very odd to me that this event, that this Q thing isn't going away. Really, despite all the evidence against it. But it kind of shows you how everything is, if anything, consistent with how cults work. And I had been talking about General Flynn, rather. General Flynn, who is using the template of a very well established, well known, and very successful doomsday cult in how he communicates to his members or the followers of Q. And of course, these diehard Trumpsters. So these diehard Trumpsters do believe Trump was sent by God, that Trump and Pence was a message, trumpets from the angels of Revelation or some crap. They believe this stuff. They really do. And, this is and it's not even strictly Christian at this point. It's so new age. I mean, it really is, to where they believe that the Antichrist is actually the Christ and JFK is the Christ, and he was shot in the head because of it, and the Bible misrepresents him as the Antichrist, but they can't wait for him to come back so they can worship him, presumably for 1,000 years. I mean, it seems like they've gone pretty far out there, but they're being led by, again, General Flynn using the template of an established doomsday cult, who the cult Universal Triumphant had its members going into fallout shelters after selling all their property. It's like in 1990. And they did so because they believed that China and Russia were about to nuke us. Well, so we're in a similar situation now with the space war narrative unfolding, with China and Russia would be the ones to do this. So I don't think that the Q thing goes away until you have people in underground bunkers, if they don't already. BBC UK put this out there. Fact checkers label YouTube is a major conduit of online disinformation. Like just YouTube in general. It's not just conspiracy theories on YouTube. It's not just the flat earth section. No, YouTube itself. It's just a conduit of disinformation worldwide. They're going to probably have to do something. YouTube is being accused of not making enough efforts to address the problem. The false content problem. So anyway, fact checkers have said it's causing real world harm. People are being influenced by anti-vax comment and spreading misinformation. So the infodemic. Going through some comments here. I'll open up phones here in just a moment if anyone wants to call in. Okay, Johnny says there's a clip of a BBC reporter who ate a piece of his own leg from 5 years ago. Hard to find it on YouTube now. Right. Well, the idea of normalizing cannibalism, I don't know. I thought they would go vegan first, but I think they want you to accept the idea of the individual as being expendable and of no value outside of the group. I think it's more of like a metaphor. I don't think they want us to literally be into eating meat. All right, let's continue here. NASA has its rollout on its SLS in mid-February, the Space Launch System rocket, and this is going to be placing the Orion capsule on the moon. 33 stories tall, 322 feet, which is very consistent symbolically. Because remember, it's the Saturn rocket with the Apollo mission, and 322 is a very important number to Saturn. Everything is super encoded when it comes to the space program. Look, New Zealanders hunting down online conspiracy theorists. So you have like these kind of self-appointed conspiracy theorist fighters. They call themselves FACT, Fighting Against Conspiracy Theories. This is actually a group in New Zealand. They say misinformation is actually killing people. They are killing people. It makes me so angry I have to do something. So yeah, you have a group called FACT, and they're hunting you down. Now again, it's just another one of these examples of just the blatant, I would say, arbitrary nature of this whole thing, where they are going after those they consider to be conspiracy theorists. So you can pretty much guarantee that FACT is not going to have any beef with the people spreading conspiracy theories about the globe heating up or ocean levels rising or of bat soup borne pandemics. No, those are not considered to be conspiracy theories. And the definition is always changing. John in OKC says, I was banned from Twitter unless I recant in my statements. Yeah, they make you take it back, don't they? It's like the Inquisition. They don't even care what you think. They just want you to say what they want you to say. You got to have your digital mask on. They have like a psychological equivalent of a mask. And the terms that they use are always wrong anyway. I don't know any anti-vaxxers who are truly anti-vax. A few of them maybe, but for the most part, it's about the compulsion. And they don't trust the salesman. And why would you? You have these people who make these weird jokes about exterminating mankind. Do you really want to let them put anything in you? No. And it's so obvious. It's like, wait, Bill Gates, out of all the people to represent this, why would you pick someone who has this reputation? I mean, he said something that's just ambiguous and he never clarified it. He's like, we might be able to get the carbon emissions down to 0 by this time, but we're going to have to do a lot of vaccination. Well, what does that even mean? He sounds exactly like the guy from Utopia, who's based on Bill Gates. Again, if you haven't seen Utopia, it's literally based on Bill Gates, and that's probably why, and it's John Cusack's character, it's probably why it got pulled after one season. People ask, why did Utopia get canceled? Amazon was relatively quiet in its announcement of the Utopia cancellation. So the simplest reason we can come up with is low viewership, or it was not met well by critics. Well, it wasn't met well by critics because the heroes were the anti-vaxxers who destroyed the warehouses full of vaccines that were going to be used to sterilize the population. I mean, it really is a good series. I mean, a good show. I watched the entire season, and they call it a sci-fi thriller, but there's a few other elements to it. One, crisis actors, but two, the main characters are kind of conspiracy theorists who have figured out that this comic book series called Utopia is actually consistently predicting and had predicted the news, just like we have noticed with Netflix. So in many ways, Utopia shows how the Metascript concept works without probably even intending to. Like, this is not limited to just this one comic book where this one guy had inside information. We're looking at a more broader thing when we talk about predictive programming and mass influence. But Utopia seems to give away all of their tricks, even how they engage in perception management with fake people. So they have one scene where there's a group of people in a boardroom coming up with a news story where they have to actually make up a backstory for one of their crisis actors. So again, it's called Utopia. I highly recommend it. But to me, again, we're looking at a controlled opposition on both sides. I think anti-vax and anti-gun are equally fallacious positions to take. Needle versus gun. Open border versus closed border. I think these are all just controlled. I don't really participate. And that's why I kind of resent being censored or kicked off these different platforms, because all we're doing here is we are making observations. That's all we're doing. We're not even making conspiracy theories. We're just making observations. All right, let's see what else we have here. Going through some posts that I have on my Minds feed. I know I'm early, but I'm also an anti-microchipper. Yeah, microchipping is the next thing I keep hearing about. But these are all old. I think these are almost like recycled conspiracy theories that have never come true. So I don't have any faith in Big Brother accomplishing these things. One other thing to consider is, how long have these stories come out, these conspiracy theories about Vaxageddon and exterminating the population? A long time. And yet, the population has continued to metastasize. Like, if they were going to exterminate the human race or cull the population, they would have done it 20 or 30 years ago. It's a little late now. And now their job is 10 times bigger. So no, I don't really think there's anything to be afraid of. Biden's approval crashes to 33%. CGI Joe. Such a nebulous thing anyway. Approval by who? Like there's some mass mind. Like that type of thinking. Like there's this poll. There's a common good, a collective mind we have to appease. No, I don't believe in it. But they would have you believe in it. They would have you believe that there's this mass mind consensus agreement and you all just have to comport yourself to it. Now take a look at this. NASA is Satan minus the T. Now you know why they say T minus 321. I kind of like that. Don't know if it's true, but I do think there might be something to it. If you ever look at the snake tongue in the middle of the logo, it makes perfect sense in that context. All right, going through some comments here. Commenter says, on Serpentine Lake in Hyde Park is a mastaba made out of oil barrels and the Bennu bird. Now the Bennu bird is the original phoenix. It preceded the phoenix. Very ancient old symbol. NASA just sent their Osiris Rex to go hit the thing called Bennu, which I believe is going to be hitting the Earth in a few hundred years. Look, I caught this on InfoWars. I was going to see what the QAnon shaman was doing. Owen Schroyer. And he was showing how you could take the Pfizer logo, and if you break the P, you can actually spell Lucifer. Well, Lucifer with a Z. So, you could actually flip that and make it into it would have to be a C. Anyway, it's close enough. Lucifer, what's the difference? So we're not the only ones who are scrambling letters. Look, I found one the other day. Greta. Do it yourself. Greta with a 0 at the end. Because World War Z, she's part of that. 0 carbon footprint, reducing our carbon footprint by 50%. World War Z. Well, anyway, if you take Greta and 0, you flip the T. Now, if you flip the capital T, it kind of looks like an L. Then you can actually get Al Gore using the 0 as an O. And I've been saying for some time that Greta Thunberg has got to be Al Gore's animatronic avatar. And with Dr. Fauci, you can take the F and bend the horizontal bars down like a pair of fangs or a couple of booster shot needles. Bend it down into an A, and you can spell Dracula. Probably not a coincidence there. I think it's all word magic, if anything. Sigil magic, which is a thing. Commenter says, finally you back, bro. Yeah, hey, we're going to be back every night at the same time, 10 o'clock. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. But also, go to infiniteplane.radio and get on the newsletter. You can get on it for free. If you pay, you get into our Discord server. And there's almost 500 people there. But if you just get in free, you will get notifications when we're live, for sure. And if you miss anything, or if I have newsletters, you get in on that. And you get links to all the different platforms that we're on. And you can catch up if you've fallen behind on anything. Let me go ahead and go through my video feed here. We're almost at 1,000 subs, and I'm actually behaving on this channel. We haven't really done anything to get us shut down. Let me go ahead and play this clip again. And I'll put a link below if you want to check it out for yourself. Crater Earth USA.
But I then also have the right to explore other versions that have been told, which includes Crater Earth, which is even...
What's Crater Earth?
The Earth is actually a much larger planet, and we are living in a crater in it, and that's...
Wait a minute. We're
glad.
In a crater?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I have the freedom to explore
Is the
these
whole
theories.
universe the Earth, and then we're the crater in the center of the universe? Is that
so
what
the
you're saying?
moon is, in essence, if you look at I'm just telling you the theory, right? This is conspiracy
I don't
therapy.
think we should say theory when it comes to Crater Earth. Let's just say the wacky story.
As you wish.
I feel like theory it's a little lofty for this one.
Okay.
Well, anyway, he's not even interested in details. He's just laughing at the whole idea. But my whole point is we're looking at a alternative cosmography here. It's no crazier than saying we live in a matrix. Here's a guy who he does copious amounts of DMT and has the wildest conversations. But you talk about something other than the standard globe model, and he just loses it. Let me go ahead and check out the comments here. Ryler05 says this should be titled "Joe Rogan Can't Handle the Truth." You can look at him as a barometer, though. Of you can just tell if something's true. Wave it in front of Joe Rogan, and if he starts laughing, there's probably something to it.
8 hours long. 8 hours long.
Again, that's Adam Curry and Joe Rogan. A few more comments here. Says here, excellent. Adam is very open-minded. Evolvement says, first, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. Third, it's accepted as being self-evident. Not too bad. Look, I mean, I'm not sure 100% about everything. The only people who think that they are the people who believe cartoons to be real. Like, I believe I know what the whole universe looks like. I saw CGI. Right, that doesn't count. You haven't seen what it looks like beyond the Carmen line. There's a point where it becomes Disneyland. It becomes a Disney production, essentially a cartoon. Okay, it becomes a misrepresentation, secondhand. That's why they always show you the astronauts looking out the window with their mouths wide open because the Earth is so impressive from up there, but they don't show you what they see. Like, you get many shots of astronauts in the cupola where they are taking pictures of the Earth. So here's the cupola, and you'll often find the different astronauts in there just kind of perched there looking out at the world. Like, really just, wow, God made this. I have God's eye view. Look how fragile it is. I'm having a cognitive shift. I got to save the Earth. I'm going to vote Democrat. Like, they go through all these profound changes when they stare down at the Earth from up there. But we only see the edge there. We just see little bits. We don't really see what they see. They never show us the direct view, and that's because they're looking at a screen. Or this is all photoshopped, and we can prove this in many, many different ways. I've seen many, I mean, long before the topic of flat Earth ever came up, you can find people on the Clues forum analyzing these photos, finding where, nope, this is fake, this is fake. I can show some examples of where the Earth is probably too close by 100 miles. Like, the ISS doesn't go as low as some of the photos you can see, especially the older ones. I mean, it's worth going through. It's eminently debunkable. But my point is, the people who claim to know the big picture are really taking a lot of their information secondhand, and it's a leap of faith. So you believe a guy that tells you that he has seen the heavens, and so now you believe in...
In 2012, I told a story about the future. I don't like looking back.
Sorry about that. This is Tom Scott, another one of these climate change fanatics. I don't want to really listen to it. Okay, let's see here. Going through some comments. Someone says, what's up in space? Venus, when passing behind the sun, was hit by a massive CME this morning. The morning star is back. I haven't seen it. I'll take a look. John in Oklahoma says, Sweden is actually chipping people now for the Vax green card. Okay, I'll look at that. It's kind of a dubious claim, and I don't really even think they're going to have to do anything by force anyway. Like, 30 years ago, I'm sure, if you looked at the book 1984, you would have thought it would be a nightmare society. It wouldn't be possible to get everybody to be on camera all the time, or for everyone to have their thoughts opened up to Big Brother, to be an open book. The total destruction of privacy. I mean, that's what 1984 is about, the elimination of privacy. Well, now, here we are in 2022. The concept of privacy is kind of archaic now. The idea that everything's public. Your blood is now public. Your medical status is public. Your vax status. They want to make these things public. And I think it's an attack on privacy. But my point being, it might have been inconceivable then that we would be completely open books as we are with social media and now the metaverse. But no, we are in a total surveillance society and a total snitch society as well. I mean, the censorship that we're seeing is not technically censorship. It's not Big Brother doing it. It's other people who've been, conditioned or whatever. But it's other people who are flagging the videos and getting rid of content, cancel culture, etc. So we do live in a total surveillance, total snitch society. So when it comes time to get everybody vaxxed, they're going to just find a way to sell it to everybody. They didn't have to install cameras in your house. They sell it to you. It's almost like they just changed the culture to accept it. And so why wouldn't it be the same with the idea of microchipping? I've been wondering about this too. It's like, well, if anyone's going to be the vanguard of that agenda, isn't it going to be probably the Goths? I mean, if you look at it, Like, where does the temple of Satan stand on the whole vax issue? If there is any mark of the beast iconography and symbolism, you think they'd be the first ones to glom onto it. But if anybody's going to go for the microchip, it's going to be those guys. They will find a way to market it first. They're not going to force it. Anyway, I'm not really too worried about it. I don't believe in any of these things. I think it's all Psywar. And it's almost a disappointment. I was watching TikTok for a little while today, and I was like, man, this almost makes me wish that pandemics were real. No, I'm kind of just kidding there. Let's see. Rudy and the dog says, look at the Farnese Villa in Italy, the original Pentagon. I'll take a look. Do you know where the Pentagon, or actually, let me see if I find the date. Do you know what date they started building the Pentagon? Because I know they had, here it is. Yeah, they actually broke ground. Here we go. It was completed in 1943, but they actually broke ground on, I believe it was 9/11. Yep, September the 11th. I want to find the actual year though, because it was 60 years before, I believe. But that date, 9/11, it's highly significant because it's the start of the new year on the Coptic calendar. Okay, so the Pentagon in pictures, location, timeline, and history. So it says the construction began without fanfare. It is probably a private Masonic ritualistic ceremony on September the 11th, 1941. What are the odds? 60 years after the day the construction began. And there's probably some significance. 6 million square feet, 60 years later. There's probably significance to all of it, even the height and everything else. In fact, you can find predictive programming for the attack on the Pentagon in Stanley Kubrick's film, Dr. Strangelove. Going through some comments here, see if I've missed anything else. Appreciate everybody showing up here. Tomorrow we're going to have open phones, probably starting earlier in the day. I'm trying to get more people to show up. It's been a very busy week with mostly all of the legal stuff, but that's, for the most part, out of the way. I've been, as you all know here, I've been kind of busy suing stalkers, trolls, and also YouTube for trademark infringement. Stuff I've been dealing with for some time, but it's pretty much going to be done. I don't think I'm going to have any more work to do in that regard. And I'm trying to avoid those types of conflicts in the future. So anyway, I don't expect these interruptions to be consistent. We want to have the 24/7 stream back up. So I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to sign up for the newsletter. And if you join on Patreon or the newsletter, it's $2 per month. It gives you access to our Discord server where we have a pretty much non-stop research. So if you haven't been to our Discord server, we post all of our links 24/7. There's always people there in the voice room, and then that's also where we do a lot of our meme work. So if you're new to memes, if you're not a meme lord, we accept anybody at all levels, even basic crop and drop. I still have a penchant for crop and drop, raw, basic MS Paint level memes. They really stand out today when everyone else's are hyper polished, especially looking at the NFT style work. Everything is so polished and 3D and takes expensive software. It's kind of refreshing to see the old school crop and drops, crude for its own sake. Anyway, have a great night. This is Auto Hoax or GTFO by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms.